Iron Curtain began to come down. One of the first major tracks behind it to see racing action was the Hungaroring. But this place lends itself to an iron defense. And with passing at a premium, prepare to push hard as we get ready for the PCA Sim Racing Series 13 Club Class. And you'll see it all live here on RaceSpotTV. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. And behind the scenes, our director, Hugo Louise. We're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. PCA is also proud to announce that they are celebrating their 70th anniversary in 2025. Here's to many more decades with North America's largest Porsche enthusiast group. As we take a look at the schedule, there is only 2 left here, Joey, just today and 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, on that final European stretch of this 7-race season, take a look back at what we've done so far. Started off over in Florida with the Daytona Road Course, then went over to Portimao for Algarve, and then to Mosport, Silverstone, of course, that wet, rainy race, and then Road America just a couple weeks ago. But here we are at the Hungaroring, a very fun racetrack, and like you said, Joe, only 1 week remaining here. And speaking of the racetrack, this is exactly what we're going to be doing here today. 14 turns, 2.72 miles in length, and quite a bit of elevation change here at the Hungaroring, specifically in Sector 1 and Sector 3. Sector 2 is a little bit more technical when you get up there into, call it, that Turn 5 through Turn 9 area. So really, Sector 1, plain and simple, a couple hairpins, get the power down. Sector 2, make sure you roll the speed through all of those switchbacks. Be careful on some of those apex curbs. And then Sector 3 is all about putting that power down, climbing the hill towards that turn number 14. And of course, you got to get on the accelerator to get to that start-finish line.
So important, that run down the front straight. We'll probably see it a lot tonight. Now, if we take a look at the championship, because as it gets closer, it's getting more and more important to have good results, which Dirksen did not at Road America. And that's why he's now down to second place. A massive swing as Velez is now more than 200 points ahead of him, and he has 280 points sitting in his pocket even before this week. So he is sitting pretty right now. He basically just has to wrap this one up. That was a death blow almost for Dirksen. It's going to be hard to climb out of that hole with Tong sitting close behind him to try and battle for that second spot, maybe even for the championship, but we'll see, as Tong has been a little all over the place at times over the course of this season. From there on down, it's a very tight battle for 4th down through 10th, but that is just the driver's standings. Let's take a look at the clean driver's standings, and right now Kenneth Eskridge is currently leading on a single incident over the entire season. Now, that does include a drop week on this one too. Even still, that's over 5 races that he's only gotten a single incident point. It's even more impressive that Velez and Sherburne only 3 each, with Dale Green sitting in 4th position there with 4 incidents. From there, it's a much bigger drop-off. Boyer on 11, Tong on 15, and then a tie between Dirksen and Glenn back there on 21. So it's mostly going to be down to those top 4 to try to come away with it. As we take a glance at qualifying now, probably one of the more important features of tonight's events in this race, Joey.
It can be difficult to pass here, so your point of qualifying being important is true, right? You got to have the track position to start off this race, and if you're further towards the front of the field, well, that just means most of the mess is going to be behind you, and that's exactly what you want to be doing, is putting that mess in your rearview mirror. We're watching the number 934 of Richard Woodruff right now round out at turn number 5 and into this very technical Sector 2. These are some of these apex curves. There's that orange bread box curve. You got to be careful. The shocks on these Porsches are amazing, and you can definitely ride over these bumps, but you take them too aggressively, you can bounce you off the racing line.
Certainly. Yeah, there's a lot of flat ones around here, but there's some that you got to give a little bit of respect, no doubt, as he comes towards the end of the lap now. to try and finish this up nice and clean. There's a few spots, such as right here, where you can't go too wide, or you can wind up getting a slowdown penalty. Of course, here in qualifying, you'd even have the lap removed since you're beyond the track boundaries. They only get 3 laps to try and set their best one. Right now, Richard does not have a time on the board and less than half the time initially left to go here. So he's going to have to boogie.
Let's see what he can do here. He's going to put down his first timed lap, a 1:45.3. So that should kind of put him right in the middle of the field. It looks like about 15th right now. And kind of to your point, if you want to make those final couple laps, no mistakes from here on out.
Certainly. So glad to see him get one down. Rondeau, Gregory, Jarawala, and Snelling still don't have one. This is Robert Neville in the 087 with the best of a 1:45.2 as he comes down to the braking of turn 1. Not talked about enough how tough it is to get this braking right. It's pretty steeply downhill.
It is, and it just continues to go downhill after that turn 1 apex. And not to mention, it's the longest straightaway feeding into that turn number 1 brake zone. So you've got all the time in the world to kind of nitpick about spotting your brake marker. And oftentimes that can kind of lead into those accidents of thinking about it a little bit too much. And then, like you said, just kind of the track falls away when you need the performance the most. It's a tricky corner to start out this lap.
Can easily throw it away right at the get-go. But Neville coming around towards the middle part of the lap now into that chicane we saw not long ago with Woodruff. Let's see how he navigates it. Nice and tidy on entry. Yeah, that looked pretty clean to me.
Yeah, it does. And then it's all about just flowing the speed a little bit off of apex right there. And what was turn number 8 kind of corrects it there. And turn number 9, but definitely cost him probably a couple tenths as you start these switchback sections. And then this one's so important. Get on the throttle and use up as much of that driver's left curbing as pretty much Barney will allow.
Yeah, another spot where you can throw it away so easily, and they do have incident limits, of course, in this series. So drivers during the race itself will have to try and keep it nice and tidy, because one thing they have changed, if you're just joining us for the first time in Series 13, is they used to have the drive-through penalties at 17 incidents. That is no longer the case. It just goes straight to the disqualification at 25 this time, as it was before. But now just no warning, so you better be paying attention. He'll cross the line, and it looks like he has put himself into a decent 14th with that lap. Now we check out Jarawala.
Yeah, let's see what Rex can do here as he crosses the line. Come across start-finish right about here and start that lap as he goes downhill into that turn number 1 that we were just talking about. Make sure you jump on the brakes, get the car slowed down towards apex. He does a really nice job of using that entire track as we jump over now to the 210 car here of Steve Komatz, rounding out of the final turn number 14. Steve is currently 16th on the board. We'll see if he can improve his lap here, a 45.1. So no, not going to improve. He stays 16th.
Back to Rex. Again, one of the drivers that still needs his lap down, because all of his other ones have been deleted up to this point. Coming up through turn 5, almost unending corner, and he's going to bail out of it. That's it for Rex Jarawala. He's going to have to start from the back.
That's going to be a frustrating one, and I think that Chris is only our last car on the racetrack here in qualifying. He's down here in 26th position, going through this turn number 11, little sprint down to turn number 12, where sector 3 is, and I'm sure that these are just some extra laps right now, kind of get the familiarity of the race pace that's going to be what all of these drivers are going to be doing here in about 45 seconds.
Exactly. There's no rule that says that you can't keep going in qualifying. It just simply will not count the laps past your initial 3. Hence why we'll still see some drivers out here running, even though they've already taken their allotted time. And kind of don't blame them. Try to get some practice on a twisty circuit like this will pay dividends. The more perfection you can lay out, the harder it's going to be to try and get by you out there, just hitting all of your marks, even if you can't get up to the speed of those in front of you. Was happy to see Marc Rondeau also show up in this one. Runs in the Porsche Owners Club Series as well, which Joey and I have covered. And you've seen a few of those drivers kind of join in on the fun. And glad to see he has gotten into the mix and looks like he'll be starting from 21st. So sounds like we've got a little bit of an event coming up on May the 4th. Why don't we take a look at that?
Spinning into the westward chute.
Do love that we've got this awesome event coming up here at Spa, and of course this is a part of Operation Motorsport, which has worked a lot with the PCA. They're going to be hosting this, and it'll be a benefit event, a 6-hour race on Sunday, May the 4th, and it'll be, of course, at Spa-Francorchamps, one of the most popular tracks that we have on iRacing. For more information, go to pcasimracing.com/opmo6hours. Or if you'd like to register, head on over to tinyurl.com/opmo2025. There you can see it on the screen. Make sure and join in. It's going to be a good time. And it's all, of course, about veteran recovery through motorsport, which is the whole point of Operation Motorsport. Really awesome people, what they do with both their virtual and their real world stuff. But we're into the warm-up now for our drivers. So, of course, we've got them out just getting a few more practice laps in before we get to the grid itself. But since we have all the times down, I believe we've got our grid ready here, hopefully in a short moment. We can tell you exactly how we're going to be starting today's race. So, as we watch from above, we might also be able to give you a bit of a pole lap as well out on track. Yeah, let's look at that one first here, Joey. Talk us around how to be quick here at Hungary.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to be doing, riding on board the number 97 with Michael Schultz, and it all starts in that turn number 1 brake zone. It's also important to get the power down. You see Michael really fighting the steering wheel, just trying to lay the throttle down as soon as possible. Turn number 2, you kind of have to treat the same way, except the elevation gets even more intense. You see the track really falling away, so it's always trying to get that grip on the front right tire through turn number 2. Coming up to turn number 4, the fastest corner on the circuit. You really got to chuck this thing into the left, jump it over that curb, flirt with the track limits on driver's right, and then whoa this thing down for, call it the hairpin down at turn number 5. It is a fast third gear U-turn. And then really the heart of Sector 2, these switchbacks. This is the slowest one. Turn 6 and 7, jump up and over those curbs, and then nail every single apex here. Here's turn 8, feeds directly into turn 9, hustle the car all the way back over to driver's right to set up for what is turn number 10. And then this is turn number 11, another one of those corners. Get on the throttle as soon as you can. Flirt with those track limits, and now pick your brake marker for what is turn number 12. You can go really deep into this corner as it starts to kind of compress and go uphill. And this is where you really start to take advantage of that elevation. Lean on that front right tire, feed into the throttle, lean on that right rear tire a little bit, and then come up to turn number 14. Late apex this last turn here. Get that shot off of this very, very late apex. Stand on the gas in third gear and off onto the front straight. Away we go.
And that's how you put it on top. by Michael Schultz here for today's club race. There you can see him on pole starting next to Kellen Heimbucher. Then you've got Terrence Tong starting in third. Great place for him to start this one off in his challenge for a title. Mark Foley will start from fourth as Ben Leung is in fifth, and Julian Velez will start from the sixth position. Sylvester Canny will be P7. Row 4 sees Michael McKinney to his outside. You've got Kenneth Eskridge starting ninth. David Glenn will round out our top 10. Then row 6 has John Gibson flanked by Peter Sigourney.
Over in 13th, we've got Dale Green with Robert Neville starting in 14th. Derek Dirksen here in 15th with Steve Komatz in 16th. Mike Matson in 17th in the number 3 car with Scott Bowers lined up next to him in 18th place. Then in 19th, we've got David Snelling and Richard Woodruff on 20th. Mark Rondeau in 21st with Peter Coomer in 22nd. Patrick Adamczyk in 23rd and Mark Doran in 24th.
From there, just a few more cars. Robert Lacroix, 25th. Chris Sherburne, 26th. J.R. Gregory also did not set a time. And Rex Jarwala there, 27th and 28th, respectively, at the back of the fields. We'll see if they use any sort of strategy trickery to get themselves up towards the front. We do have a scheduled pit stop in today's race, so watch out for that. And drivers can try and use that to maybe jump some of their rivals. But unlike what we had at Road America, it might be a little bit harder to save fuel riding in someone's tow.
Definitely. Road America always on the throttle. Here at Hungaroring, at least you got, call it Sector 2, that's really, call it, flowing through that series of corners over there. But passing, always difficult around this circuit here. Turn number 1 is probably your best shot. And guess what, Joe? On this initial green flag, everybody's stacked up. It is your best shot.
So we might see some aggression, but remember, they penalize drivers who get into trouble on that first lap in what they call the orange zone extra harshly. So you do need to be careful if you're going to try and get your elbows out here at the start of the race. Schultz next to Heimbucher at the beginning of this one. Who's going to get down to turn 1 first? With Schultz having the advantage of the inside line. They come off the final corner waiting for the call from the flag stand, and there it is. Green flag is out. Someone popping out of line towards the back. I wonder if that's going to be a penalty, because that was before the start-finish line. Meanwhile, it's a good start from Schultz, but Heimbucher is really giving him a challenge. Here comes Terrence Tong looking down the inside. Couldn't quite get there in time. Some 3 wide. One car getting turned in the middle of the pack. Not sure. Oh, looks like a few are not going to be able to get away without some damage, but those at the front are off clean.
It was kind of that little bit of start and park after a car got turned around in turn number 1. But like you said, the majority of the field made it through cleanly. And now we go downhill through turn number 3. Remember, all of these tires, all of the drivers' brains still getting up to temperature. Let's see how they handle turn number 4. This can be tricky on those cold tires riding on board the 388 with Terrence Tong.
Third place driver coming around to the chicane at the back half of the course. This is very much single file through here. If anybody's willing to try and go double wide, they might wind up paying the price with either an off track or just tangling with one another. But as we continue to ride with Terrence, he's sticking as close as he can to Heimbucher, not willing to give up those top 2 yet.
And it's, if anything, it's actually going to be coming from right behind Terrence. Mark Foley is starting to close in that gap to that rear wing, that pink rear wing. So Terrence definitely has some company in that rear view mirror as well.
Let's not forget about Velez back there in 5th, our current points leader. Doesn't really need to do a lot to push himself up to the front, although it would probably be nicer for him. But sitting in that 5th, he's probably in a decent position, at least points-wise at this stage. Here we are riding on board with him. That is Mark Foley just in front of him.
I think that Foley actually slipped up a little bit through turn number 13, which allowed Velez to close in nicely going up into turn number 14. And here you see Julian just kind of present the car out driver's right to Mark. He says, hey, I'm here. If you make any more mistakes, I just want by.
And the great news for Velez and Tong is that Dirksen is well down the field in 15th. Now, if you're a Dirksen fan, that's horrible news. We'll see what he can do to try and get himself back up. He started there in 15th and has a ways to go as we see the battling get awful close here, coming down side by side through turn 4. Make that 3 wide maybe between McKinney, Leung, and Canny. Canny around the outside up to turn 5. This is a tricky one. He's going to go off track, unfortunately, and lose the spot.
And I think it was Michael McKinney, the big gainer in all of that. That's that black and pink car heading up this train right now, Joe. I noticed that Ben Leung got in too deep into turn number 2. That's kind of what sparked all that 3 wide out of what was turn number 3 heading up to turn number 4. Another thing I'm noticing, the number 911 car of John Gibson has a black flag, unfortunately.
I had called it a little bit earlier. He popped out of line before he crossed the start-finish line. You have to stay in line in this series until you cross that marker. And I don't know if he was avoiding someone checking up in front of him or what, but the stewards decided that was worth sending him down pit lane. There he is on screen now. This is going to hurt this early in the race. He has about 4 laps to do it. I almost wonder if it'd be worth it, Joey, for him to try and stay out a little bit before he actually takes the black flag so that the field can get separated.
Agreed. And I think if you really want to get tricky with it, can you stretch it out to that 4 laps and possibly save fuel the rest of the time and make it your pit stop? I'm not sure if they can do that at the same time, take service as well as a penalty. Well, here comes Sylvester. He was maybe thinking about it, getting down into turn number 1. John goes a little bit wide, so Canny's going to take the inside line. And this is an interesting position to be in for that number 19 car, because you probably know that John Gibson's got the penalty, but obviously you still want the track position, don't want to lose that gap in front of you.
Now, we don't have any rain coming today, but my goodness, the cloud cover really came in thick. Look at how dark it got on this side of the track. And you're right that Gibson was able to hold off to that 8th position. So here's what caused that initial checkup and a little bit of contact in that 3 wide down into turn 1. Thankfully, it was light taps for everybody behind.
You see just the accordion effect kind of stack up afterwards, but like you said, should be light damage for everybody behind. And tell you what, John Gibson, even though he's got the black flag, he's a little bit of the cork in the bottle right now. Sylvester Canny applying all sorts of pressure, and that's because there's a 1.5 second gap between John and Ben Leung up the road. Sylvester does not want to lose touch.
Just trying to make out who that car was that tipped him. I think it was Peter Sigourney, but David Glenn took a big bit of pain for that, because he's down in 21st position at this stage as we get a little side-by-side. Sylvester is not going to take no for an answer. He will demote Gibson, who decides now it's time to finally serve that penalty, and he works his way into that long entry.
Already on the pit lane speed limiter, and yeah, excruciating long for John Gibson right now, just watching all of his buddies fly by him on the playground while he's got to trundle along at about, call it 45 miles an hour or so. Riding on board with David Glenn here in the 172, getting the awesome shots. And a little bit deep into turn number 1 for a few of the cars. Looks like some action going on the racetrack.
Yeah, that's going to be Lacroix, who is going to lose that position potentially. Yep, he backs out of it, coming down into turn 2. So as they work their way down the hill, that's one more position, and Glenn obviously got the one from Gibson, who served his penalty. Peter Sigourney also just given a black flag, so I called that correctly. He was the one that turned around. David, who we ride on board with, is making a good job of trying to recover here. He's obviously made up a few positions since then.
You bring up a good point, right? Because he got turned around, you feel like he's probably one of the faster drivers, and he's just kind of stuck back here in traffic. So this is going to be a race of what if for David Glenn, and how much can you kind of dig yourself out of this hole? We'll just have to keep an eye on him over the next, call it 53 minutes. See how many of those positions he can go and get back from turn number 1.
Use the force as best he can to try and get a few of those out here Next on his list is Patrick Adamczyk, Robert Neville, and Rex Girawalla, who seem to be in their own battle. He could maybe use that to his advantage if they get a little feisty there in front of him. Still got plenty of race left to try and make things happen out here. Schultz still our leader, obviously, up at the front of this pack, and about by 2 seconds now at this stage. On to the front stretch they go once again. Does look like pretty good pace here for Glenn as he seems to be catching Adamczyk.
Adamczyk is in the green Rexy car, and Glenn is taking a look down into turn number 1. Was just a little bit too far back there going into the brake zone to really make a significant lunge. So as we kind of focus on that number 407, definitely has that pressure. We'll see if David can maybe make a move. I'd guess probably going down into turn number 6 if you're close enough. But really, once you get to this point in the racetrack, it's almost a little bit of lead follow, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be very patient from basically here on out until you get towards the end of the lap. I have to say that Adamczyk has done a great job himself. He's up 6 from where he started in this race. That is almost eclipsed by Girawalla, who has already passed 12 cars after starting from the back for failing to set a qualifying time.
Shows you also the speed that Rex has out there, and probably how frustrating he is when he didn't get to put down that qualifying lap and knows that he has to go out there and pass all of those cars. But hey, you got to look on the bright side. Sometimes it is fun to start in the back and go out there and just see how many cars you can pass in a race distance.
Probably feels a bit like a superhero out there being able to do that. By the way, they're going to get one more because we got another black flag. Robert Neville was involved in an incident on lap 1. So he is being sent in, and there you go right there. That is Robert coming in to serve that one. And yeah, you could see the disappointment in his face after having to make his way to the cones.
Yeah, just click on the pit lane speed limiter and forget about it. That's all you can do pretty much at this point in the race. It looks like Neville's going to be stopping in the pit box down here. Was it a drive-through? Was it a stop and go? It looks like he's going to take service.
Should be a drive-through. Usually that's what they give for these, unless if it is a stop and go, they usually say stop plus however much. Now, with him stopping and it being a drive-through, that will make the pit stop longer typically. They will hold you for a bit.
That would make sense. And there he goes. There goes the 087 back on the racetrack. And you see there ain't nobody around, so he's got a nice clean piece of racetrack. I wonder if he can make it stretch that entire fuel tank 50 minutes. I don't think so, but we'll find out.
Yeah, we're on the reverse of what we had last time, a very thirsty track at Road America. This one, like you said, you're not on the throttle, on full throttle, a whole lot, so maybe he could push it pretty far. I think we've seen drivers at some tracks go as far as about 12 minutes left or thereabouts. But yeah, it'll be fun to watch and see just how far he can take it. Meanwhile, just a little farther up the order, this is Komats versus Green versus Dirksen. So Derek, making pretty good progress himself, up 3 from where he started. Remember, he's on the back foot in the championship, so he's got very little to lose. He definitely has reason to be aggressive.
So Dirksen is the white and black car with the bright green wheels, the number 505, as they all kind of tuck in the slipstream line down the straightaway. I actually think it's Dale Green, maybe a little bit closer to Steve Komas, this 3-pack as they enter turn number 1, go down the hill here towards turn number 2. I definitely feel like maybe Dale even got a better run out of turn number 2 there, and something happened with the number 97. Michael Schultz, our leader, our pole sitter, is around in turn number 2.
He gets it going with just a big enough gap, and as he does that, drivers having to go around the outside. That is difficult to do there in turn 3. He gets at least up to speed. Oh, is he going to try and go side by side? He is. This doesn't usually end well. Respect given. That is Dirksen who is fighting him for it. Dirksen gives him just enough as they come through 5, 6, and now down into the chicane. Oof, almost making contact. He's going to dive to the inside as he sees an opportunity, but can't manage to get there.
Schultz closes the door there in 6 and 7. Here's the replay. He just was in too deep, as Phil Collins says, in turn number 2, and around it goes. You're always leaning on that front right tire, and sometimes if you trail the brakes in there too much, you can kind of lean too much on that front right tire, and Michael Schultz found that out.
I mean, he was having a good race, it seemed. Nothing really seemed all that dramatic up front. He hadn't completely run away, but he had that clear air that everybody wants. That means that Heimbucher now is up at the top. And we've got Dale Green ahead of Schultz, who goes a little bit wide coming down to the final corner. He's able to straighten it out, but he once again goes wide on the exit as well, going off into the AstroTurf.
We talked about some of these drivers that are a little bit faster further in the back of the pack. Well, now we get to watch our pole sitter, our fastest car, see if he can make his way back inside the top 10 and potentially back inside the top 5. I think that's going to be a little bit of a difficult ask given some of the gaps up here, but he is the only car on the racetrack that's done really call it a sub 145 out here. I think there might be 1 or 2 others. So Michael Schultz, it probably has a little bit of red mist. He's a man on a mission now.
Scott Bauer's the latest to receive a penalty, and he's already served it. So apparently it was for an incident on lap 4. I don't think we got to see that one. There he is coming out now, down into turn 1. Again, he's out into clear air, and he did stop in his pit stall. So a couple drivers kind of trying that strategy and taking the pain of things of being sat down a little bit longer on your way through pit lane. In the meantime, we've jumped forward a little bit. This, I think, is towards the latter half of the pack, coming down towards turn 14. Here we go. We've got a replay. Is this what sent Bowers in? Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's a tough one there. Just kind of the front bumper to the rear bumper, and turn number 8, you have a feeling that was going to get called every time. Looks like Michael Schultz is trying to make a move around the outside here. Maybe a little bit of an over-under with Dale Green. Possibly just try to set up what is turn number 14. Michael has yet to make up a position ever since he spun that car around. You see how wide he goes there at turn number 14. Try to really square off that exit, but if anything, Dale did a terrific job to kind of take the shorter distance and actually kind of prevailed with it.
I'd say so. Somebody going way off the racing line out there, and no reason to defend. Not sure what they're doing going off to the inside line. So for now, Schultz will remain stuck back there. While he is stuck there, we're going to take an opportunity to mention that we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. Got a little side-by-side action coming down into the chicane. Michael Schultz is trying his best to get this one, but he gets rebuffed as Dirksen is going to be able to stay ahead in P11.
So, Joe, this was another mistake out of Michael Schultz, but this time it was turn number 5. So he was in way too deep into turn number 2. That's what caused the spin. He once again got in too deep into turn number 5. It opened the door for Dirksen, and that's all that Derek needed to go ahead and grab that 11th place position. So Schultz continuing to tumble.
Not the day he was looking for. Terrence Tong, though, with an excellent opportunity to maybe steal a win up at the front. He's only half a second behind Heimbucher at this stage. So I think this race is still very much on. There you can see them. That's Tong in the Roxy car, the pink one. And then you've got the sort of teal and pink of Kellen Heimbucher leading this race. They're being chased by Mark Foley in the white and red machine back there in third. From there, you finally got a bit of a gap down to our championship leader, Julian Velez, in fourth. We're going to ride on board with Terrence Tong following our race leader around.
It's only about 3/4 of a second, just under. behind Heimbucher, and Kellen actually a little bit slow there through turn number 4. Terrence really taking advantage of carrying the apex speed through the fastest corner on the racetrack, and was able to call it about a 10.5 out of that lead. So let's see if maybe Kellen is a little bit neater and tidier through the slow speed stuff, as Terrence was so fast through that high speed stuff. And Terrence definitely is just focused right now, just took another 10.5 out of the lead, so he's closing it in.
And we have to remember that this is one of the 2 series that PCA runs where it is open setup. I have to imagine a track like this, Joey, is a course where a good setup can do you a ton of good, especially in those twisty bits.
100%. All right, if the car drives better, that means the tires are going to last longer. That means the car is more comfortable, and the more comfortable it is to drive, well, guess what? The driver is happy and can place that car wherever he feels like on the racetrack. Foley getting right up to the bumper of Terrence Tong there in turn number 14. So maybe our leader has a strength there in sector 3 as he was able to grow the gap between himself and Terrence. We'll see if kind of Tong can now close it back in like we saw.
And he's gone wide. It opens the door. Tong's going to pick up the opportunity, but the inside still slightly belongs to Heimbucher. This is going to be a battle of the late breakers down into the left-hander, and it's going to be Terrence Tong. Just like that, he picks it up for the second time in the first 20 minutes of this race. The leader has given away the lead on an unforced error.
Brake zones, right? They're so important, and here at the Hungaroring, turn number 1 and turn number 2 are your heaviest brake zones. That's exactly where we've seen the leader make mistakes. This time it was Heimbucher, and Terrence was there to pick up the pieces.
Wow. I said Terrence Tong has a great chance here, and now it's increased just a dozenfold for him. By the way, life has gotten worse for Michael Schultz, if you can believe it. He's now got a black flag for an incident on lap 10. So something happened last lap that either we didn't see or didn't think was worthy of a black flag, because I don't remember him doing anything that would have brought that out.
But here's the thing. He was falling from 11th to 12th, and now he's back in 14th. So, yes, he has definitely been in the thick of things somewhere. And talk about the thick of things. Remember how there was that 1.5 second gap between 3rd and 4th? Well, Velez has closed that and brought all of his buddies, McKinney, Leon, Canny. They are all here, and it's now, what, a 7-car fight for first.
My goodness, we got the Hungary Express on its way down the main straight. So here is what happened. Yeah, I think we must have missed this one. Tries to dive it in. That just reeks of desperation, I'm afraid.
It's called red mist, Joe. When you make a mistake out there on the racetrack, the red mist descends over the visor, and all of the good decisions become bad decisions.
Julian Velez still fighting for his spot, and Michael McKinney almost able to take that one away. Velez up to 4th now, steadily picking up positions here and there, some by others' mistakes around him. But he'll have to try and play defense a little bit, as well as challenge on Foley with every way everything is backed up with this front group. That's going to be difficult with how tight everybody's gotten up at the top of the field.
I think that these 2 cars that we're kind of focusing on here, McKinney and Velez, are actually the 2 fastest cars of this pack of 7. Now, Terrence is doing a terrific job to try to run away. Ever since he got the lead in that clean air, he's grown that gap up to almost 1 second. But you got to remember, Velez has closed gaps. He's passed cars. Michael McKinney's been on him as well. So I feel like they've done a lot of uphill legwork so far. And now that they're at the front, what do? Do they kind of hang out and fuel save and potentially do an undercut or overcut situation? But I think that these 2, keep an eye on them.
Absolutely. And say that Leon Canny just in a good position. Ooh, behind him, we got a nice little battle. Mark Rondeau with Mike Matson to his outside, coming down to the right-hander. Unable to make it stick, but certainly gave it a right try. And Rondeau up into the club class, so definitely a testament to the speed that we've been seeing out of him in other series lately, because for those not familiar, club class is the 2nd highest class you can race in here in PCA.
Shout out to that gray Porsche with those orange wheels, +9 on the day, chasing down Mike Matson in that blue number 3 car directly in front of him. And yeah, coming up to the halfway point, so we haven't even seen really any of the strategy play out. A lot of these drivers making their way through the track position the tough way, earning those passes.
Indeed. And for all of us saying it's difficult to pass here, I'm looking down my timing screen. I think there's 3 cars that are still in the same position they started in. So there's been quite a few changes since the cars gridded up here today. Coming down into the brake zone of the chicane. Kenny still unable to quite manage to get by Leung. Just got a face full of that Brumos livery.
Sylvester has definitely shown some huge flashes of speed here in this race, and he's right here in the front pack. Put himself in a nice position when the strategy cards do play out to kind of do what he needs to. Stay in the front pack, give himself the chance for a win. And I saw that he also put down a 1:44 lap time earlier, albeit with an incident point. Probably ran a little bit wide or maybe kind of cut an apex a little bit. So Sylvester definitely has speed, and sometimes you just kind of take advantage of those track limits too, just like he did.
Out of turn 14 once again onto that main straight, and they all stretch apart as they all get onto the throttle. Up at the front of it, Terrence Tong in that bright pink Roxy car leading the way. Hy Bucher maybe thinking I could try and get back into that lead if I can just get up to him. But we watch the back of that field. We got another driver in the pits, Rex Girawala. Now this actually does make sense to me because he's trying to get himself that clear air. I mean, he was already, I think it was up to 14 I saw before he came into pit lane.
Definitely, and this I would assume is well within the fuel window to make the early set of stops. And kind of to your point, started at the back, was in the thick of traffic, so you might as well take the early stop. Hopefully you pop out in clean air and can do those efficient laps and make up a few positions that way.
I can report he is very much in clear air. Yeah, he's got nobody around him, so he called that extremely well. He'll have a number of laps that should be wide open for him as we continue to follow Canny. Still chasing on Ben Leung. Leung obviously up there in the points, but that's just in the order of them. He's a ways behind our leader in those points, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult for him to try and fight for the title this late in the season. And just coming almost out of nowhere, big move from Canny. Can't get it done though. Leung round the outside, defends successfully, and that'll give him the inside into 13.
Canny was definitely close enough, and I'll give him an A on that lunge, right? Got to the apex before Leung, but Ben just left plenty of room and was able to capitalize on the corner exit. Let's see about the slipstream here. Launch out of turn number 14. Sylvester going to do everything he can to try to close in that gap to Ben in that 290 car. About 2 car lengths away entering turn number 1. Sylvester thinks twice about going down the inside.
Yeah, I wasn't there for it that time, but still, he's made his presence known. Ben is probably well aware at this stage and probably won't leave the door as open if he does see it coming once again. This has cost them a bit of time up to Michael McKinney in the sort of magenta and black in front of them, so they can't dilly-dally too much, and that will probably urge Sylvester on to try and get this spot away. We get ever closer to that halfway mark, but we're not expecting many drivers to be in unless they are in sort of Rex Girawala's position of trying to have to do something different than those around them. This is continuing to be the battle for the lead, essentially, for our top 7 cars.
And speaking of the lead, you know, just big shout out to Terrence Tong as we watch Dirksen maybe have a little bit of an issue on the racetrack, but Terrence he's done a fantastic job, right? He got the lead from the mistake from Kellen in turn number 1, and he has pretty much turned off those rear view mirrors. He is not phased at all from anybody behind him, and he's grown now a 1.6 second lead heading into those pit stops.
That is impressive. That's fantastic pace out of Terrence. So it wasn't just that it kind of fell in his lap. He's grabbing it with both hands, and he's running And if he can continue to pull that gap, that'll put him in a nice, comfy spot for the end of the race. That's probably what he's aiming for right now, just making sure he's got some wiggle room just in case he hits some traffic or something else happens, such as a mistake out there. We're going to hop on board with McKinney now, chasing on Julian Velez. And again, this is one of those things where the dynamics of the bigger picture can play into this, because like I said, Velez is our points leader, and he doesn't want to waste points. McKinney, if he's aware of that, probably has a chance to maybe poke and prod at him and know that Velez will try to be a bit safe about it.
And if memory serves correct, now I cover a lot of these sim races along with Joe, but I think Michael did an awesome job on kind of the fuel save unintentionally. Maybe at Road American was able to leapfrog a couple of those cars. And once again, Michael kind of finds himself in that familiar position where he's been behind a car all 30 minutes so far. Oh, runs a little bit wide there at the exit of turn number 7. Thankfully, he's got a little bit of a gap between him and Leung behind him. But kind of to my point, when you're following a car, you get to lift off the throttle on the straightaways. You might be fuel saving, not even thinking about it.
That's true. Yeah, he could have maybe positioned himself to jump a few drivers once we get to the pit stops, but we got to wait and see. And we're not expecting to have them at least for another 10 minutes, if not maybe 15 more minutes, before most drivers are likely to come in to take their service, as they all will make it difficult to see who is pitting and who is not, because you can see they all kind of go as wide as possible out of 13, almost looking like they're heading into pit lane, but then they have to switch back across for 14 very quickly. But nothing happened in this lap. They're all still stuck in line and haven't seen any attempts for a little bit now. So they've all settled back in. Maybe they're regrouping, looking to try and see what the future brings.
Behind Velez is definitely closed up. Obviously, we've been paying attention to McKinney, but Ben and Sylvester Canny back here are just kind of closing in the caboose on the train. There is a couple gaps. Julian's kind of grown that out to 2 seconds between himself and Mark Foley. I was about to commend Terrence Tong on how consistent he's been up at the front, but unfortunately that last lap was just kind of a little bit off the pace for him, and what was 1.6 seconds now down to about 1.1.
Also, Derek Dirksen has just pitted, and he is back out, and he emerges immediately behind Rex Chirawala. So, wow, that's a testament to how fast Rex has been after his pit stop. He was a couple cars behind him, I'm pretty sure. So that worked out well for him. There you can see them coming down into the left-hander. And that is Rex leading this trio. Behind them is David Glenn, who has also been in, but that, of course, was during a penalty he was serving.
Unfortunately, I think we had a problem with the 0-11 of Mark Rondeau. I tried to go back and find something. I don't think it was an actual issue on the racetrack, Joe. I think it was just an internet connection issue, but saw him drop down out of the top 15. And actually, well, hey, now he's back, Joe. He's reappeared on the racetrack.
There we go. All right. Yeah, I hate to see him removed here because of internet issues. And this series does take that very seriously. They will black flag you if they find your internet connection has caused too much blinking. Although now iRacing does have an automated way for that. Curious if the rules will maybe be adapted to take that into account come next season. Meanwhile, there is another attempt from Canny, this time trying to look around the outside, and then as it switches back, maybe he could get the launch and be brave up into the top of the hill. Doesn't look like he's got enough pace, but again, he is keeping Ben on his toes.
Yeah, but Ben, there's a mistake on the exit. Here's turn number 5. Once again, Sylvester going to try to set up an over-under. This could be possible into turn number 6. Does he make the lunge? He presents the car, then kind of puts himself right in the middle of the road. Canny had nowhere to go, so get through Sector 2, come up with a new way.
How many times have we seen this, even in real-world racing here at the Hungaroring, a car that is moderately fast but knows where to place it on the track can be just a nightmare to be stuck behind.
It can be, and that's usually a savvy driver. Here comes a deep lunge from Canny. Can he get the car stopped? He keeps it on the racetrack, and he's on driver's left, exactly where he needs to be for turn number 13. Ben Leung is going to lose out on 6th place.
Yes, Canny can, and he did. He gets himself a nice spot with a brave move, and credit to Ben for not trying to slam the door shut, seeing what was happening, and leave him enough of a space. Tried for the cut back, but just wasn't quite there. Now will he be able to maybe get his revenge down into turn 1? Sylvester's going to cover it off, just hovering in the middle of the road as they come down the braking. And no, it's not there for the 290 machine. Sylvester has got it for sure.
Leung certainly thought about it in turn number 1. Sylvester kind of compromised his run out of turn number 14, and we'll just have to keep an eye on Ben, see if he kind of feels wrong done by that. That was the second time that Canny really threw it down the inside of turn number 12, and you can't ask anything more out of Ben Leung. He left room both times, so great racing in my book.
Yeah, it was fair to me. But before we get back to the action on track, we want to mention Princess Cruises once again, the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. We're still looking for pit stops from about 18 drivers out there. So still a lot of people that need to come in and get their service. Maybe have about 10 minutes left before most of them will be running out of fuel. Will we see an absolute flurry of pit stops, or is this one going to be spread out by people looking to try and get an advantage that their rivals might not spot?
Our biggest story on the racetrack is this right here. Terrence Tong once had a 1.6 plus second gap to Heimbucher in second. It is evaporated. Now only a half a second between Tong and Heimbucher, and call it a half second between Heimbucher and Foley. So our top three all stacked on top of each other, and even Julian Velez has closed in that gap, now down to about 1.3 seconds between third and fourth. So the top three, the top five, really starting to compress.
Theoretically, Kellen Heimbucher should be the faster car of the two, at least if we go by qualifying. He was up at the front of this race for a little while, so I'm sure he wants that back, but he's going to have to try and overtake Terrence Tong if he wants to do that. So far, he's been doing what he needs to do, which is to close the gap. Now, once he gets there, then it's its own kettle of fish, unfortunately. And as he continues to knock the laps down, eventually he's going to run out. So it's going to have to be sooner or later here that we see something out of the 14. Still at about 0.8 of a second, so not seeing much gain. If anything, maybe a couple tenths lost here.
It's about the consistency. I really felt that Terrence was so gosh dang consistent when he got the lead initially. He kind of grew that gap, but the last handful of laps have been off pace for him. They've been 146s, high 145s, and he was just ripping off 45 threes, 45 fours earlier in the race, and it's just kind of flip-flopped to the performance going Kellen's direction. It could also come down to the setup. You were talking about the open setup. Some cars might be better in the first half. Some cars might be better in the second half.
That's true. And I kind of wondered about that, if Terrence maybe used up his stuff a little bit too quickly and Kellen was able to reel him back in because he had tried to sprint away too hard there in the first half of this race. Kind of interesting that Mark Foley's starting to drop off a little bit too. There's Julian Velez closer than ever behind him. So might become a four-car battle for the lead once again.
Julian's last lap of 45.2. Compared that to the top three in front of him, they all ran 46.0, so over 3/4 of a second faster was Julian's last lap around this place. And coming into that pit stop window too, right? A little bit deep there in turn number 5, kind of has to diamond off the exit there, but I don't think he lost too much, maybe a couple tenths.
I mean, honestly, if I'm Kellen, I would start thinking about trying to dive into pit lane, maybe a lap or two ahead of Terrence, just trying to see if he can catch him off guard. And if not get by him, at least get closer when the pit stops finally happen for Terrence. But we'll see whether or not he agrees with us as we're coming up towards that pit entry pretty shortly. And unfortunately, the gap continuing to grow up to 0.9 of a second now.
Going by the data, right? Just the hard facts on timing and scoring. I think that Sylvester Canny is actually the fastest of this top 6 group. It's just he's got the worst track position out of everybody back there, and he's actually ditched out on Ben Leong ever since he passed him. So maybe it's an opportunity for that, call it turquoise number 19, to do what you were just talking about, jump into the pits a little bit early.
I always like to see the dice rollers, you know, those who are willing to gamble, do something out of the ordinary and see what it gets them. So, yeah, I'd love to see Sylvester maybe try and jump a few of these cars. And speaking of Ben behind them, it's now almost 10 seconds to Ken Eskridge in 8th place. So this front group in general is actually pretty darn fast. They've left the rest of the field behind.
They definitely have. Back to the strategy talk. My only thing is the car gets faster the lighter it goes, right? So if you do come in, call it a lap or 2, maybe even 3 laps earlier than your competitors, it's just extra weight that you're carrying around while they're burning everything off. Now, if you're confident in your abilities to go out there and turn those consistent laps while maybe our leader can't turn those consistent laps, that's the dice roll that we're wondering about.
Off through the back section of this circuit, which kind of lies in its own natural bowl. You'll see lots of these beautiful hills where plenty of spectators will often park up and watch from them to get a good vantage point across this circuit. Down into the last few turns, down through 12, which was changed from the initial one, which was much more of a kink well back when it was first built, but they decided let's try and make at least another passing opportunity in here. And it sort of made it, as we saw Canny prove to us a little bit earlier on. But really, the other only change that we've seen since this place was built is this turn 1, which used to also be much closer to the start-finish line, but they extended it. Michael Schultz, all right, what's happening with this guy since we last looked at him?
He is on the tail of David Snelling there in that red number 25. So remember, Michael Schultz was our pole sitter and just kind of tumbled down through the order, unfortunately through some self-inflicted mistakes, and really going to try to square off turn number 14. Saw him do that a little bit earlier, but actually loses just a touch of ground to David Snelling. It's that fine line that you have to walk of how wide is too wide to really kind of square off the exit to get the top speed down the straightaway versus kind of that short distance, call it autocross squirt off of the corner.
Schultz is a sales manager for Flat 6 Motorsports. And I've mentioned it before, as he just about gets his nose underneath for a brief moment. But Schultz also a former pro motorcycle racer, which certainly gets a tip of my hat because you have to have some serious guts to try and race that in real life. Snelling, though, slow off the turn, not waiting for another opportunity. Michael snatches that up. That'll put him into 13th.
Certainly did. Just saw the open door, stuck his foot in it, said, "Thank you very much, David. I am going to be on my way." And now he's got about 7.5 seconds to go up until Robert up there in the 718. But we got to remember, Schultz has already done that pit stop, so we'll just have to see how the entire top 12 and everybody else, once they come in, put full fuel in the car, or at least enough fuel to make it to the end, how everything cycles through.
Another driver has pitted in last lap. Mike Matson emerges as the highest driver to have pitted at this point, running in 18th, even in front of Rex Girawala, in fact, by a couple seconds. So Girawala not able to get by him, but I didn't see where Mike had pitted from in terms of the order, so it doesn't really give me a good frame of reference. In the meantime, Adam Chick, okay, he's our latest to blink.
Patrick comes down pit lane in the green Rexy machine, and check this out. Terrence just put in his fastest lap of the race at a 45.2, and if anything, Kellen has got extreme pressure from Mark Foley now here into turn number 5. So Kellen's kind of distracted behind him. Terrence is taking off in front.
Yeah, this is nothing but a boon for Tong here. If Foley is able to attack on Kellen, that'll slow both of them up and give Terrence a chance to sprint away right as he needs it during the pit stops so that he doesn't get jumped. Look at them, how much direction change they have to make. And remember, these are not F1 cars. Yes, they are GT3 class cars. They have a fair bit of downforce, but they do not just whip around quite that easily. You have to manhandle these things.
So let's see here. They're rounding, call it turn number 13 right here, and with 17 minutes and change left on the clock, do any of them dive down pit road? Our leader stays out. Looks like our entire top 7 are going to stay out on the racetrack at least one more lap.
I have a feeling that pit lane is going to be very, very busy pretty soon here, because not many are willing to try and pit in early and try and take some positions that way. So since we're now past 18 minutes to go, I can't imagine it'll be much further than about 15 minutes left, maybe 12 at most, if we see drivers try to push it. But we'll have to wait and see. We've been surprised before by this group and what some drivers are able to do.
I'm going to throw out a little bit of a lure here as we got 3 wide in turn number 13 back here between Neville, Glenn, and I believe this is also Derek Dirksen in the bright green wheels coming out at turn number 14 right now. But kind of what I was going to make in terms of the point is that if you're Sylvester Canny, if you're Michael McKinney, and all of the leaders are coming into pit road at the same time, Joe, there's usually like a huge stack-up accordion effect to get on the pit lane speed limiter. That alone is reason to go out there and do an undercut.
Oh, Adam Chick has just emerged from his pit stop and spun it. And he is off the course. He'll get it back on. This group just went by him. There he is now. There's the replay, actually. And the tires may have cooled down a little bit, but they don't really change the tires in this series. So I'm not sure what to put that one on.
Ooh, we got a couple takers coming down pit road here. Seems like Julian Velez is on his way in, as well as, I believe, Kellen Heimbucher. So out of second place and out of fourth place, they are going to take that early stop. We got a couple dice rollers, Joe.
I like it. I like to see Kellen in there, because that means that he's going to try and see if he can snatch one up. Velez, of course, probably has little to lose here. Velez actually taking tires, seeing him go up on the jacks. That's interesting. They're going to fall down the order. It looks like Lacroix is also pitting in. So there's a few more drivers that are deciding it is time to go. Madsen is still our highest driver to have pitted in the number 3 machine, but that's now going to change as it looks like Heimbucher has exited. As we follow our top group, we're going to check out Eskridge, Komats, and Green, who have not been able to get away from one another.
A good little 3-pack back here as they kind of come up to what is turn number 4. Go sailing through there, maybe a little bit wide there for the number 250 machine as they all kind of trundle through turn number 5 and come up to this very technical section here. And got to remember that these cars still have not pitted yet either. A little bit of a gap between the first pack and the second pack, and that's exactly what we're watching right here. Just call it the second pack, which is still inside the top 10.
And the good news for Heimbucher and Green is they came out into clean air. They're behind this little trio by some margin, so they found just the right time to dive in there. Speaking of which, Tong is pitting in. Foley, McKinney, Canny, Leung, this is it. It's the end of the road.
Yeah, and watch this big, huge accordion stack up. If anything, I think it's Sylvester Canny that kind of loses time throughout all of that. Ben Leung was actually able to kind of close in that gap. So where does Heimbucher and Velez be on the racetrack when all these cars merge out. They took 13.7 seconds when they were stopped in their pit box.
Indeed, and they're just coming out of the final corner now as we watch from above. Tong was 11.9, though. We speculated about who was saving fuel. Tong with massive savings.
Joe, Velez is making a move on Heimbucher. They're going to get past Leung. They're coming up to McKinney. It's 3 wide into turn number 1. Ben Leung on the inside. We're going to see who puts down the throttle first. If anything, Ben jumps up a couple positions.
Ooh, Velez, you probably saw his championship flash before his eyes there for a moment. 3 wide. He cannot afford to lose points here. He's in such a good position, and he'll be able to emerge, but it was in 5th as he was unable to overtake Heimbucher. Ben Leung and Michael McKinney. My goodness, they jumped. How many positions did they jump in that? About 3?
They jumped 2 each because they both passed Velez and Heimbucher through it. So Ben Leung was the big gainer, and actually Michael McKinney, if anything, I think he was actually our biggest gainer because remember, he was sitting there behind Julian Velez.
Wow. That worked out perfectly for the 527. Does look like he was another one that saved a bit of fuel at 12.3. Most drivers in around the 13-second range for their pit stops if they weren't saving fuel from what we can see. Now with 12 minutes left to go, we're into the final quarter of this race. Before it gets too spicy, we want to mention Princess Cruises one more time. They're the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. Down into turn 1, not seeing anybody poking their nose out this time, although ahead of them, Leung just went very wide. You can see him returning to the track, but he's lost a ton of time.
He lost a ton of track position. You are right, and if anything, Heimbucher thought about making a lunge down the inside of turn number 2. So I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat over here in terms of the strategy because when we watched Kellen and Julian come down, they both stopped for 13.7 seconds. I'm going to kind of call that our baseline in terms of our pit stop. Everybody that leapfrogged them was 2 seconds quicker on pit lane. That usually means less fuel as Julian's trying to get to the inside of Kellen here. But in terms of theories, does everybody have enough fuel to make it to the end?
That's a good question. It's not the first time that we've seen some drivers maybe put it a little tight on fuel towards the end of the race. So we've had some drivers run out and not even be able to get to the line by the end of it or lose very good positions as Velez continues to put the pressure on to Heimbucher. At one point leading this race, now not even on the podium and trying to at least stay within the top 5.
Julian definitely putting the pressure on here in this yellow and black car. It seems like he kind of ramped it up this lap, and I see why, right? We're 10 minutes, coming up to 10 minutes remaining in the race. So the sand is running out of the hourglass. If you're going to make a move, you better do it soon.
It's only so much that you've got from here on out. It's about 1:45 for each lap. Another look here from Mark Foley on Velez. But down into turn 1, he's not able to get beside him in time. Coming back out and towards the left-hander. This is all downhill from here. A big drop in elevation throughout this portion of the lap. So you have to manage those braking points, but you still don't want to give up time to that train in front of you, knowing that any little mistake, and we've seen plenty of mistakes so far, Joey, from drivers ahead, you got to be there to pick it up.
You do. And speaking of mistakes, a little bit unfortunate in the pit stop. Sylvester Canny, remember, he was on the kind of the back end of this group. His stop was 7 seconds longer, so I have a feeling he accidentally put a full fuel load in that car, and it separated himself from this top group here.
That is frustrating. He is having such a good race up to this point. But I guess the consolation is that Ken Eskridge is about 7 seconds behind him, so he's not looking like he is going to be caught in these final few laps that we have available. Really shows as we ride on board the onslaught of these corners just unending through that portion of the lap.
Just because I mentioned him, I just looked at Sylvester's last lap of 44.6. That is over 1 second faster than Michael McKinney, who's running in P2 right now. Even though there's a 4-second gap between, call it Canny and Foley in 6th place, he might be able to close it by race end.
Wow. So not as out of it as we thought. Clearly, even if he did overfuel it, that's on heavier fuel as well.
Yeah.
He's chasing them down. So, yeah, Canny maybe could have used a little bit of a better starting position. Who knows what could have happened in this race. That 19 is super fast today. 8 minutes left to go. Riding on board with 6th place Mike Foley with a train of cars ahead of us.
Terrence Tong, once again, has done a terrific job to open up that gap. After the pit stop cycle, he kind of took the short stop with 11.9 seconds, the shortest fill time out of all of these top 7 leaders, as Julian just constantly putting Kellen under the pressure, trying to look for a way. This has been a couple laps now that maybe Heimbucher a little bit slower through turn number 4, which feeds into 5 there, and Julian just trying to find a way, but Kellen doing a great job putting his car where he needs to.
So if they finish where they are, it'll be a 90-point advantage going to Tong this race. That's not going to be enough to put him into the lead of the points, but it will put him a lot closer. So Velez does maybe need to try and push a little bit to get a spot or two here if he wants to limit the damage that he might experience in this race. Some problems have been happening with Derek Dirksen, which we see on our screen now. I know he had issues coming down into the chicane last lap. They're happening earlier. Maybe he's short fueled or something, because he's been passed by a lot of cars lately.
Well, this one in particular, unfortunately, he ran wide in turn number 4, and I think he might have even gotten a slowdown out there. I'm not sure if Barney give those out there in turn number 4, but you're right, Derek Dirksen not having the best close to this race.
David Glenn gets his second penalty of this race towards the end, so it's been bookended, unfortunately, for him by ill fortune. And he's only got a little bit to try and serve that. If you hold on to a black flag and are able to finish the race, it will give you a time penalty post-race. So you might as well just serve it if you're not on the last lap. In fact, that's what Glenn is doing now. So he'll get that out of the way. But it's definitely a race of what could have been for the driver who started within the top 10. In the meantime, Velez still sandwiched between Heimbucher and Foley. He's having to have those chameleon eyes I keep talking about, trying to attack and defend at the same time.
And I am just impressed, Joe. Do you see that car creeping into the picture? 2 seconds back now, Sylvester Canny. 5 minutes remaining. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make any passes once he catches this group, but I mean, talk about digging yourself out of a hole. Was 4.5 seconds back plus when the pit stops kind of cycled through, and here he is now 2 seconds back trying to catch the group again.
Need to start calling him Sylvester Yes He Can, because my goodness, he's just unrelenting out there, and obviously knows how to make some hard passes work and stick, and not afraid to try and do them either. So we'll see what happens if he catches up to Foley in these last couple laps, because Tong just crossed with about 4 minutes 50 to go. I'd have to try and do the math, but that's probably somewhere around 3 laps left.
And Mark Foley here, his last lap time deep into turn number 1. Julian leaves him plenty of space, but Julian is able to get on the gas a little bit better. Let's see if Mark dives down to the left side of turn number 2. Julian kind of blocks it off right in the middle of the racetrack, going into the brake zone there, and these two going side by side has just allowed Sylvester 1.2 seconds now back.
Ooh, the 33 having a bit of a difficult day out there, but doing his best with what he's got. Foley certainly hassling him for it. With just a few minutes left to go, can he hold on, or is he going to lose even more points to Terrence Tong, who is trying to cut this down in the dying stages of this championship? Also, Rick Stirwall is not giving up. He's having a battle with Michael Schultz at the moment. And in fact, there he is right now.
Let's see here. Julian maybe a little bit wide there through one of these switchbacks. Allows Mark Foley to just continue to literally tuck it up underneath this rear wing. Remember, we saw Canny make a deep lunge here. Foley thinks about it, and all of a sudden, Sylvester is on the back of that white and red car. He has made up 4.5 seconds. Talk about the fastest car on the racetrack.
Says, I see what you're trying. Let me show you how it's done. And it's, that's a little wide there from Foley. He's going to leave the door open. You can't do that when Sylvester's around. He is going to sneak in there somehow. He's right on top of him. Mark holds the middle of the track as they plunge down the hill towards turn 1. Sylvester goes for the outside line. If he can hang tough here, he could have the inside for the next one, but that's not going to work. Still, he goes for a better exit. I don't think it's quite there. And again, Mark will defend.
Let's see about the lunge here in 2. He tries to force it. A little bit of contact, and around goes Foley. Sylvester pretty much stops on the track, raising his hand, saying, I didn't mean to get into you. And that's a tough one. If you ask me, Joe, the door was open, and it got closed quite late on Canny.
Yeah, I'm very curious what race control will think of that one. It'll be a shame if Canny does get a penalty, but that's a hard call. Let's watch it one more time here from above. Ooh, yeah, that's tough from that angle.
And once again, Sylvester doesn't wash wide into the middle of the racetrack. It's not like he blew the brake zone. He got to the inside, and unfortunately, contact was made when the door was closed.
Yeah, there's just not enough time to serve a penalty, so that would be added post-race if it does. Here's from on board Sylvester's point of view. Door was left open late. He said, I'm not going to let that go wasted. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like he didn't quite have the car in there, but it was, like you said, it wasn't like he lunged in and just blew the corner. So I have no idea how to call that one. In the meantime, white flag is out for Terrence Tong in the 388. 1 to go for his second win of the season.
We could sit there and armchair quarterback that incident all race long, but this driver right here has done such a good job. And actually, we don't need to armchair quarterback anything. Sylvester Canny just got a black flag, I see, on the racetrack. But Terrence, ever since he got gifted the lead in what was turn number 1, he said, thank you. I don't need anything more than that invitation. He has set off. Nobody has challenged him before the pit stops. Nobody challenged him through an undercut. He has just dominated ever since he got that clean windshield.
It's really been a fantastic race for this Roxy car, and didn't have the greatest of runs at Road America, although it wasn't awful. Still got himself into the top 5, but he's been scoring good points here at the end of the season, and that is what's launched him up into the top 3. At this point, after this race, he's probably going to be in second, but he's got a few more corners to go to try and wrap it up. A little bit of traffic in front of him, but I don't think that'll play a part.
I don't think so either. And if anything, he's got 2.3 seconds back to Michael McKinney, who has had a terrific race himself with that undercut strategy, so he can kind of cruise through what is turn number 13. One more corner to go for Terrence.
The 388 saw a chance. He's not going to waste it. As soon as it fell in his lap, he picked it up and he ran. And Terrence Tong is going to run home with a checkered flag as he wins here in Hungary today for the penultimate round.
Michael McKinney crosses the line in second place, and Ben Leung will end up with the podium in third.
Love to see that smile on Terrence's face. Super happy about that one. Oh, you can tell that means a lot to him. Canny's trying to serve the penalty. I see so many drivers do this. You can't serve the penalty on the last lap. You just lose the places. That's unfortunate. So as the rest of them come through, the drivers will see most of them finish on the lead lap. In fact, I think everybody is going to finish on the lead lap except for our lone DNF of Marc Rondeau, who sadly parked it about partway through. Nice little battle here coming to the finish. This is between Sherburne and David Glenn, and I think Glenn's going to get that 20th.
Hangs on to it after having a pair of penalties, and Chris Sherburne made his way up 5 positions to finish in 21st. And then I think this is Richard Woodruff and Peter Sigourney coming through turn number 14 to round out our field.
Yeah, Sigourney, another one that suffered a penalty early in this race, never seemed to really recover on that one. Gibson so close to being lapped, eventually will find his way back around. Yeah, it looks like he's got a couple more corners, and that is it. 26 cars completing every lap of this race, with Terrence Tong being the first to do it and taking the win. Michael McKinney will be P2. Ben Leung, excellent podium for him with that pit stop call. Kellen Heimbucher finishing in 4th, and Julian Velez going to retain our points lead unofficially by finishing 5th today. Sylvester Canny was 6th, and then Mark Foley P7. Kenneth Eskridge with a bit of a quiet 8th. Steve Comatz 9th, and Dale Green comes away with 10th.
Across the page into 11th will be Mike Matson. Robert Lacroix here in 12th. Michael Schultz, after sitting on pole, had a couple mistakes, drops down to 13th. Rex Jarawala had a nice run up to 14th. David Snelling in 15th, with Adam Chick 16th. Peter Coomer in 17th. Mark Doran 18th. Derek Dirksen, we documented a couple of his troubles today, falls to 19th, with David Glenn in 20th.
Yeah, we're getting into some drivers that had penalties. Chris Sherburne, 21st. Neville, one of those with a black flag, 22nd. Scott Bowers as well in 23rd. Richard Woodruff, P24. Peter Sigourney finished in 25th. John Gibson, 26th. And then Marc Rondeau was our only DNF here today. Let's see. Do we have? Yes, we do indeed have our winner ready to chat with us. So let's talk to our winner here today, and we believe second in the points. Terrence, that might wind up being a critical win. You've gained a lot on our points leader. How you feeling?
Tonight was a very tough race because we have to watch out for the incident with the track limit, and I broke my steering wheel halfway through the race, so I was just trying to keep my steering wheel in one piece.
How did you break your steering wheel? What was wrong with it?
I don't know. Halfway through a turn through the apex, I heard a big click, and then my steering wheel will start acting funny. Now it's actually pretty loose.
Oh my gosh. Well, that makes it all the more impressive. Also explains why maybe you got caught up a little bit later, because we saw you pulling away. How much pressure were you feeling once you were handed that lead? Are you one that feels that pressure, or are you pretty focused when you get those positions?
Yeah, I definitely felt the pressure, especially there was no one for me to follow, so that I have to maximum focus on that.
Well, I'd say you did an impressive job. And again, congratulations. Anybody you want to thank before you go?
Yeah, I would like to thank you guys and PCA and our sponsor, Princess Cruise. Thank you very much, everyone.
It's Terrence Tong, your winner here for our latest race in Series 13. Up next behind him, Michael McKinney, using some savvy strategy calls, put himself into second. Joey's caught up with him.
Yeah, well, Michael, congratulations on the second place. That was some excellent strategy.
Yeah, it worked out well. I was just patient this time.
It seemed like you were hanging out behind Julian for the first half of the race, and then stayed out there on the racetrack. Did you feel like you had the pace to make the passes, or was it just purely coming down to that pit stop?
I think it came down to the pit stop. Julian's got great pace, and so I was happy to hang out there. I didn't want to force anything. I forced something at the end of Road America, and it cost me. So I was going to be patient. And Julian's a great driver, and I mean, winning the championship right now. So it was an easy decision to stay behind him.
We heard Terrence talk about the incident limits. We saw a lot of our leaders drive it in too deep into some of these brake zones. It seems like consistency was what you focused on, and it paid off, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I had a little bit of practice on just trying to be patient again and don't overdrive, and it was I really enjoy the track. If you just drive your line, drive the track, it's a lot of fun.
Well, Michael, congrats on that second place. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, thank you. RaceSpot, you guys do a great job. Always shout out to Doug and the PCA volunteers, PCA Sim volunteers. My coach, Leif Peterson, my coach, Sabra Cook, and of course my family, Abby, Max, Amanda, David, Kelly, all watching and having a good time. So thanks, everybody.
That was Michael McKinney driving that black and pink number 527, finishing in second place today.
He was followed home by Ben Leung, who found himself with a nice podium to celebrate today. But Ben, you were in some fierce fights before you found your way to third. Talk to us about the battle with Sylvester Canny. It looked like he was making you have to really defend there.
Yeah. He definitely, Sylvester was making me sweat the whole time. He was closing the gap, and it's a hard track to pass, but I think we were both fast in different sections of the track. So in the end, it evened out, but eventually he got me. He stuck in there, and I just tucked in behind him. There was no choice.
Well, you got the last lap, though, because in the pit stops, you jumped a couple cars, moved yourself into third. Did that surprise you, or was that all part of the plan?
That did surprise me. I mean, I purposely put in the minimum amount of fuel, hoping to beat the guys, or at least one of the guys out of the pit, but somehow jumped 3 positions, and I wasn't sure how that happened. So I'll have to watch the replay.
A pleasant surprise, no doubt. A good way to start wrapping up the season, of course, getting yourself another third place. Do you see yourself performing well at Imola since you're kind of on an upswing now?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's going to be a wet track in the next one, so I think it's anyone's game. The points are so close in the championship right now.
Well, we love to see those close battles. I'm sure it's nerve-wracking for you guys, but congratulations on a third.
Oh, thank you, Joe.
That was Ben Leung finishing P3 out there today. And that, of course, is going to wrap us up. But we've got more racing to come. As we mentioned, we are going to be back for Imola. That will be on April 3rd when you will see the Club Series race. But we've got some more of the Hungaroring in the meantime, because next Wednesday night, March 26th, the Sport Class will be tackling this place. A big thank you goes to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as to our team tonight, Hugo and Joey. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast. I'm Joe Peak, and until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.
One, two, three, let's go.